This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 658 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, Horse Report System, and Total Saddle Fit. This week, we are joined by fitness guru Tony Sandoval with ways to improve your ride with a short warm-up. Next up is FEI competitor Jordan LaPlaca explaining the process of entering a CDI. Following that, we were talking about turn on the forehand with Julie Penshorn for our tip of the week.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Loxahatchee, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Well, hi, Phil.
How's things in Loxahatchee, Florida?
Loxahatchee, Florida. Well, there have been no falling iguanas this week, so that's good. It's quite warm. So I do have to report that became a thing. Like everyone is like, seriously, which tree was it? Where are they? So we've had no falling iguanas. There maybe have been a few falling palm fronds. Those are really a personal favorite of all my horses. We had one fall the other day, and it scares the horses, right? Because it's fine, and then the next thing you know, this huge branch falls down, and the horse is like, oh, it's a mess. So, my horses are getting some wildlife experience down here in Florida.
All right. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Keep everybody on their toes, right?
Legitimately. But yeah, no, it's really good down here. It's really full swing now. Now it's really busy. This week is the Palm Beach Derby. So that's one of the most historic horse shows. So it's really fun to be down here, and yeah, everybody's showing, and we kind of see the end.
Here's the thing about a derby, or a derby class is where several riders ride. I think this week they're going to ride the small tour, right?
The St. George. Mm-hmm.
Right. So and then they switch horses. And then they ride it again, and then and then they switch horses and they ride it again. So I think the Derby champion will be the best rider, and
they get a certain amount of time.
It's a separate awards, I guess, right? So normally. Yes. It's rider and horse combination that wins the show. This one will be best rider and best horse, and I think it's really cool. It's
super fun to watch. Yeah. And the riders only get they're last year, and again I haven't seen the start list for this year, but they're 4 riders, and they ride or maybe 6 riders. Anyways, they ride a test on their horse. Then they get a certain amount of time. It's like 10 minutes on their partner's horse. And so you literally switch. So you have 10 minutes to sort of go. There's some strategy. Everybody has a little strategy to it, but really the flying changes are critical, because I would say I have seen it lost or won on flying changes because they're so personal. Normally you can get a half pass. So normally if you watch a good rider get on there, they ride a little shoulder in, they ride a little haunches in, maybe a little half pass, and then a flying change each way, maybe a line of changes, maybe a little pirouette each way. And that's what they do. And they go in. So it's really fun to watch, actually. And,
I just a little, a note on the flying changes. I remember when Charlotte was giving a clinic here, and we all know Charlotte and Vallegro, and she said that her coach Carl Hester could not ride the one-time tempies on Vallegro, and really? I think it's just because there's just a different button, like the different leg lengths and different timing, and like you said, it's very personal. So there's 2 top riders. They train together every day and whatever, and the flying changes didn't translate from one rider to the coach.
Yeah,
but just the way it is, right? So
yeah, just the way it is.
For sure, that's super difficult.
So it is. If you get a chance to watch it online, everything's live streamed right now, and you can find that if you go to the Global Dressage website, Global Dressage Festival. You go to that website, you can find a quick link to the live stream. So all the classes are live streamed. And that happens for every CDI here in Wellington, in California, I think as well. And it's great. You get to watch the scores come up. So it's a great way to educate yourself. It's free. So it's a really good thing to watch. So super fun to watch the Derby if you get a chance. So I love it. But Phil, we've got a great show for everybody. We're going to get started right after this commercial break from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Managing horses can be challenging. Each horse's personality affects the way he behaves and reacts to the world around him. Horses with certain dispositions can be at higher risk for developing health problems than others. High-strung or excitable horses are easily stressed, but so is the timid, quiet warrior. Stressed horses are more likely to develop digestive upsets that lead to colic, diarrhea, and ulcers. Nalox Advanced was specifically developed to support a digestive tract that is under stress. It sustains proper pH levels, reducing the incidence of ulcers and hindgut imbalances, while simultaneously supporting the healing of damaged tissues. Nalox Advanced supports the complete digestion of starches and sugars and sustains populations of beneficial bacteria. Make life a little easier on your sensitive horse and start him on Nalox Advanced today. To learn more about the ingredients in Nalox Advanced, visit Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
Well, tonight we are so excited to invite and have back Tony Sandoval, my coach. He puts up with me. I'm so happy to have you back, Tony. Welcome.
Hey, Reese. Nice to be back. I love doing this stuff. I'm excited for today's topic.
I know. So I actually, this is near and dear to my heart because I think maybe Phil's in the same category, but a lot of riders have hip and low back pain. And I wanted to talk about that because that's what you and I work together with a lot as I'm aging. So wanted to kind of talk about that topic. So I'll let you get started.
Wait, Reese.
What?
I just wanted to say hi to Tony. And I wanted to ask him about it because he visited Florida and did a bunch of sessions with people. So I wanted to sort of get his perspective on that crazy place that is Wellington and see what I thought about all that.
Phil, I mean, that was my first time there, by the way.
Yeah, I know. So that's kind of why I you just put fresh eyes on it.
Yeah, no, at first you're just like jaw dropping, like, whoa, there's people that have full on legit proper rings covered arenas in their front yard. And I'm just like, is that normal? I guess it is in Wellington. And then when I, meeting all the people there and working with a lot of the dressage people, that's why I thought this would be a good topic, because although I love a lot of the commitment that people show there and everybody's very dialed in. I mean, Reese talks about it all the time. She does very well and stays committed to the program because she's in an atmosphere that you can easily do that. There's not a lot of distractions. It's just all about training both your horse and yourself. So I love that atmosphere. I loved it.
Great. Now, okay, so now we can get to a Tony's tip or a Tony's discussion. Yeah, that's all I wanted.
Yeah, cool. So today's topic, what are the main causes of hip and lower back pain? I think is really important to talk about, because as I assess people, and at some point or another, somebody will sneak in, oh yeah, my lower back hurts, or my hip is hurting, or when I'm leg yielding, I find it difficult to do X because I feel it in my hip flexor, or I feel a strain in my low back. So all these things, even though they're addressed to me differently, they all stem from the same thing, right? And that's low back hip pain. And I would say that with research on this topic, one, if not the number one reasons why, is poor posture and ergonomics. And what I mean by ergonomics is overall how you stand, how you perform daily tasks when you are set up what we call a lot of disadvantaged muscles, because some are stretched out and get weaker and some are very tight. And when they get tight, they don't function properly. So when we work at our desk all day, when we're sitting watching TV, when we're driving for a long time, and our body gets really used to that posture, the body is going to make sitting very ergonomical because you're doing it for such a long time. So it's perfect. It knows what to do. But then you take that posture and you take it to writing. There's where the brain gets a little bit messed up because it's going, wait, we were just fine rounding our shoulders, slouching our back, tucking our hip under our shoulders, for the most part, relaxing core, turning off glutes, and we can sit for a long time. And now you want us to activate all these. How do we do that? And so when people ride, especially adult amateurs that maybe are there for 1, 2 horses, there's where you start seeing a lot of back pain when they ride. You might not get back pain from doing any other activity, but when you're doing a sport that requires proper posture for riding, you set yourself up at a disadvantage. And there are other reasons, right? I think another reason, you come in with a prior injury that you never, ever treated, which is so uncommon for riders, right, Reese?
Exactly. Yeah. I've had one of those when I was young. And, when you're young, you don't think about it. And you probably didn't, I probably didn't put as much effort into it when I was 20 that I would have to now. But it certainly has affected, riding as I've gotten older, or just the general wear and tear of horses that I rode that probably now I wouldn't ever ride, So I tell my youngsters that I'm like, yeah, you think that's going to work now, but just, add 20 years to yourself. So exactly. I don't think, and riders are notorious about not taking good care of their bodies, not taking care of injuries, not focusing on it, and not going and lifting heavy things, probably not lifting the right way. When you lift a tack trunk or bale of hay, nobody ever really taught me that till I was older. And, that was already wear and tear that had already happened. So I think that's also just reasons as you get older that you have to focus on. But Tony, I agree. Sitting, I think, is the worst part. I think most people will sit at a desk or not be paying attention, and then they go ride their horse, right? So I guarantee they don't stretch, right? You see that all the time and preach that.
All the time. And when you come in with just those top 2 reasons, it makes it very difficult for anyone to actually access all the muscles that they have available, but they're only accessing, we'll say, 60 to 70%, which now creates more strain and more likelihood of injury. So it is a vicious circle because I get it. I've been around enough barns now to know you only have a limited time. You get there, you do what you need to do to prepare, then you have your lesson or you have your time slot that you have to do your work, and then, back to the barn and then do your things to get ready to leave, and then you got to get ready for the next day tomorrow. So there is no time for a lot of people to do anything. But I think that you owe it to yourself for longevity and for your horse, as far as communication purposes are concerned, to devote at least 5 minutes. You can do so much in 5 minutes if you know what you're doing and have these go-to exercises that, you don't even need equipment, just something to tell the brain, hey, we're getting ready to do these movements and I need you to get out of this posture and now start going into this type of more, we're going to call it functional for your activity type of posture.
I think riding is so unique because not only do we have to access, the strong core muscle, but all of the other postural muscles are, because your horse is, moving around underneath you, and you've constantly got to be small movements while also engaging the big, strong, like ab muscles and those ones that we do. I don't think there's anything else that can really, replicate that. So what do you think that, how do you advise riders who, especially adult amateurs, they have their one horse, how are they going to access all of those things while not on the horse, for a workout plan or something like that? What's your advice?
So I think you make a good point. And the goal of any warm up is to get you out of your sitting posture. So if we exit that posture and then you get into this more of a functional type of posture ready for any sport, when you sit down on your saddle, then you will have the opportunity to access all those small, very intricate muscles that you use when you're riding. So there is no sport-specific exercise to get you ready. The only sport-specific exercise is riding itself. But with a warm-up, it will allow you to access those muscles. It's like you're taking the locks off all your tools, and now you have all this access to tools, the tools that you need to ride. But it doesn't show you how to use the tools. That in itself is doing the job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So, Tony, what are some things? Yeah, what do you do? What are that 5 minutes? What do you need to be doing in those 5 minutes when you're getting ready to warm up?
What I do in 5 minutes with people that don't have time is I try to use the barn area because they're usually there. There's where they are, they can, before they start tacking, they're all ready to go. So I'll do things like they're called frontal plane and sagittal plane leg swings. So if you can think about using, let's say, like your stable, you can just hold on to that side, or if there's a rail that you can hold on to. And one leg is going to be your plant leg. We'll call that the stability leg. The other leg, usually the outside part, so away from the stable, is your working leg that's going to swing. And what you do is you're just swinging the leg forward to back while keeping your plant leg or your stability leg super stable, and then allow that leg to start swinging forward to back, and that's a sagittal plane. So what that does is it starts loosening up your hip flexor, squeezing your glute, and then flexing your hip flexor and relaxing your glute. Things that happen when you're moving. It's just not specific to riding. It's specific to human movement in general. Right after that, so it's 10 quick ones each side. Right after that, then you turn and face the stable. So now both hands are on whatever you're using to support yourself for balance. And then you'll swing your leg in a frontal plane, which means left to right. And now you're swinging your leg, and now you're crossing it over, and your hip is now adducting, and then you're swinging the leg out to the side for you. So now you're abducting. So we call that abduction. So adduction and abduction are movements that are done while you're riding. Specific, no. But the general is what we're trying to focus here. So just those two exercises literally will take you between 30 seconds and 45 seconds, depending on how fast you're swinging your legs. Those two. So those would be my first two go-to ones. The next one that I would do to try to activate your system is to try to get a pitchfork, something that you're using to muck a stall. And we've done this, Reese. Remember when I brought my sticks and I showed you the way to loosen up your chest?
Yeah, I like the sticks. They really help, actually.
Yeah. So what you do with the pitchfork, I think I have a video on that on my Instagram, but it was a while. It was like a couple of years ago when I showed it. Somebody took a video of me showing someone, but it's basically putting the top of your hand on the top of the stick. So it's in the palm of your hand, I'm sorry. And then the other hand is lower on the stick. And what you're doing is you're swinging the stick up at a 45-degree angle towards the hand that is on top of the stick. So as you're swinging it and you're pushing with that bottom hand up, your arm is going to get distracted a little bit, meaning it's going to get pulled. And when you pull and push, it stretches out your chest muscles. Why do I focus that? Because usually if people are sitting for a long time, earlier I said that there's muscles that get long and get weak. And then there's muscles that get tight. And when they're tight, they won't allow your back muscles to function properly. The chest is those muscles that get tight. So the more I stretch them out dynamically, so I'm swinging the stick up at a 45 and then I'm letting it fall down. I'm swinging the stick up at a 45 and letting it fall down. My chest starts to open up little by little. I'll do about 10 to 12 reps each side. That may take me, again, another 30, maybe 45 seconds because I also want to breathe and I want to maybe hold the stretch at the top for a little bit, just like for a second. So it might add a little bit of time. So now I've worked on my hips loosening up. and I've worked on one exercise to at least open my chest up so that I have a shot at pinching my shoulder blades and dropping them down, putting them in a good spot. Now, if I just had, again, 5 minutes, I would say that those 3 exercises are a very low cost entry point to giving you or setting you up to have a good habit of warming up.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, for me, something that I have to do before I get on my first horse is stretch out my hamstrings, because I think that the hamstring is used quite a bit in your riding. So if I don't do that and I get on my first horse and he's a bit lazy and I go to I go to give a quick kick, I'm gonna feel it if that's not, especially in this weather where it's like minus 20 degrees out or whatever, and I don't do that hamstring stretch, I'm gonna feel it, and then I'm gonna have to go home and roll it out, and I've got all kinds of stuff that I've got one of the vibration guns and all kinds of stuff. So I really want to prevent myself from making any of my.
You don't want to use that vibration gun.
Tight. What's that?
You don't want to use that vibration gun at all. Tony has one, and it's. Yeah, you don't want to go there. Just don't do it.
And see, Phil, for that, if I were to say you didn't have time and hamstring stretch was just one body part, but I wanted to give you more bang for your buck, there's where that leg swing would come in handy, because not only would it stretch out your hamstring as you're kicking your leg up, but it would also be helping your hip flexor work. So you also need your hip flexor when you're riding. So now for the most part, getting a couple birds here with one stone in that leg swing. So it can be dynamic enough to stretch the hamstring and improve the strength of your hip flexor. And then when you're swinging back, now it's stretching out your hip flexor, and now you're squeezing your glute. So now the glutes are starting to get active enough to not have to use the low back as the main muscles around the back, which are your erectors, as your stabilizers. You're going to be using your glutes to help you stabilize your hips so that you don't collapse. So again, I try to pick when someone's fighting me on the warm up for whatever reason, I know I can get these people to do 3 exercises that for the most part are very easy to do. You don't have to be in shape to warm up, because that's another thing. Well, I haven't worked out in so long. I didn't say work out. I said warm up.
Yeah.
We've got Tony. We've got him edgy now. He's like, geez, I can't even make him do it. Like, oh my God. Like, we've got him jaded already. You're welcome, everybody. That's me.
That's the world. That's my reality. So then I have to come up with ways to introduce it at a very low. I always say this, the cost of entry is very low. Like if you just invest this much with these cool exercises, and then if you wanted to say, okay, Phil, here's a couple more intricate exercises that would give you more. Well, then at that point, now that I got you built on a habit, now we can add something more for the hip flexors or for your hamstrings. Now we can add a little bit more of hip internal and external rotation, which is very important for having lower leg control. But that takes more skill. That takes a little bit more time, and we're not there yet. We're at 5 minutes. So that's what I would do.
Okay. So everybody can go out there and start with those 3 things. And then, maybe in a month we'll add something to it or whatever. Yeah. The other thing I want to say before we let you go here, Tony, is that, since we last talked, I actually signed up for Instagram just to see your Instagram page, because you're always talking about it. And wow, you've got a lot of great stuff on there. So I just wanted to, say to everybody who is not on Instagram, maybe your page is a reason to join.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem.
I wake up real early to get all that stuff done, and I'm like, I hope people are getting some type of use from this.
I appreciated it. Yeah, I appreciated it, and I appreciate you, and I want to thank you for coming on the show and all that great stuff.
Thank you. Here's what I'm going to do. I talked to Reese about this. I'm currently filming it. I am going to put out a free ebook that is going to be built for equestrians, the pre-ride warm-up. And I'll also probably have some cool-down exercises. So I'm going to create a library of exercises that can start from, again, low entry point to I want to take this a little bit more serious. And you'll have the opportunity to just click on links, go to these videos, and you can build what you need. So it'll be for hip stability, hip mobility, balance, upper body mobility and stability, and flexibility, because the upper body can get pretty tight. That way you can pick and choose a la carte what works for you. So if it is something with your shoulders, okay, warm this up. Here's a couple things that you can add. If it is with your low back, great, try these things. That way, again, it's a way for me to help everybody that listens to this show, but to teach them that you don't have to worry about being in extreme shape to warm up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Tony, how can we find you online?
So I have my website, which is coachsandotraining.com. I don't know if people still say www. I feel like that's forgiven.
No, I think we dropped that in probably 2020 or so.
I still say it.
2019
I still
or something.
say it.
Yeah, so for the people that do need the www, there it is. But I feel awkward saying it.
Yeah.
And then I have, like I said, my Instagram page, which is at Coach Sando Training. And I had a cool post today about how to calm your nerves before shows. So 3 quick habits that you can do. So you guys can go and check that out. But yeah, those are the best ways to find me. I also have a Facebook page, which is the same, Coach Sando Training.
That's awesome. Tony, thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to next month.
Looking forward to it as well. You all have a great night.
No trainer has time for endless phone calls and text messages informing owners of training progress and updating their teams on care plans. That's where the concept of Horse Report System originated, a centralized system that can help busy trainers easily communicate with their team and with each horse's owner about training and health needs. From there, the vision expanded to organizing demographic data needed for competitions like microchip info, breed society, and sport association numbers, as well as storage for photos and important documents. Based on input from professionals at the elite level of equine sports, the system grew to include everything a busy professional needs to keep their horses in top form and their owners engaged with the horse's progress. Today, Horse Report System is continuously evolving to provide equestrians of every level and discipline with the most convenient and user-friendly way to provide optimal care for their horses and easy communication with their team.
We're the Healthy Critters crew. I'm Tigger.
I'm Patty.
And I'm Coach Jen.
If you're a horse lover, dog lover, cat lover, llama lover, chicken lover, parrot lover, paw and hooves and feathers lover, Healthy Critters is for you. We have fascinating guests, nutrition tips, information on various critters, and the only talking Pomeranian dog on the radio.
Hello, everyone.
Join us for our bi-monthly laughter-filled romps on HRN.
Brought to you by BioStar US.
Well, tonight I'm so excited to have a friend of ours, Jordan LaPlaca, on the line. I saw him in the CDI tent last week, and I couldn't wait to have him on the show. Jordan, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners.
So I'm a professional dressage rider, and I am based out of Connecticut in Ledyard, which is in the Mystic area of Connecticut, and I seasoned down here in Florida in Wellington. I brought 8 horses down this season, and it's been one heck of a great start to 2022 after not being able to do much the last 2 years.
I love it. Well, 8 horses in Wellington and showing, it's a lot because it's sort of, you're showing and you have the horses at the barn, and it can really, it's intense. So tell us, this is your first year at the CDI international level, correct?
Yes.
Because that's what we wanted to talk about tonight, because it's a huge thing to navigate. We all talk about, I'm in a CDI this weekend, or I'm working toward a CDI, but there's a lot of things that go into that. And I thought you would just be a great person to sort of talk about it. So can you tell us a little bit about your CDI horse, and then we'll go through the process of what it's like to enter him and go to a CDI.
Excellent. Well, so this year I've got a super horse that is owned by a client that we imported last year from Germany. And we got him he was unconfirmed at the level we're doing now, and spent a year developing him and decided that, hey, he's got some quality. Let's see how this goes. And he's coming 12, I think, Santa Moore gelding. And I've just sort of fallen in love with him. And, it was kind of the intention was not to really go here with him. It was we bought him for my client, and, it was going to be a shared ride. And then it sort of morphed into, hey, he's got a little bit of extra. Let's see where we can go with it. So this is his first debut at the FEI level, let alone the CDI level. So this has kind of been a trial run. But he's proven to be a super good candidate for the sport and just loves to show. And it's been a blast to take him down center line.
Yeah.
So what is I just was going to ask, what is your experience with him in the competition arena? Where have you shown, and what levels, and how did you decide to jump to CDI? I
really sort of just dove in. He had never competed at St. George or I-1, and I had him over the year, and we came down this season, and I came down with the intention of going, I think he's got the quality, and I have mentors and people that I work with, and they agreed. And so I kind of just dove in. I took him to a schooling show maybe once or twice beforehand, and then kind of just dove right in.
Okay, I love it.
Okay, we don't recommend that for everyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I think that opens up a really good topic. I mean, if you're confident and you're really ready and think the horse is ready to go into the international sport, I think that is awesome. I think normally when I decide to go into CDI or not, I know how the horse is a little bit in the international ring. And I mean, a lot of times your scores, if you're sort of not sort of in the mid to high to 70%, mid high 60s to 70%, typically you're going to go into the international ring and your scores will go down a little bit. Not always, but they're going to be tougher in there. So I think the normal route is, no offense, I think it's great. Everybody does their own route, but typically you got to be pretty confident in your horse and in the level before you go in before 5 judges. So,
absolutely, Reese. I have to agree with you 100%. And I do want to clarify, part of the decision to do this was as I took him down the beginning of the season and did the schooling shows, he just proved to really enjoy showing and really, just was solid in the ring. And so it was not a foolish, let's just jump in and see what we got. I knew I had a horse that was confident going down center line. It worked for me and him. So
exactly. In the schooling shows, the schooling shows in Wellington, honestly, are essentially recognized competitions. You're going to have recognized judges. I mean, the schooling shows here versus sort of the schooling shows in Kentucky where I'm from, I like to clarify that. They have a schooling show on a Wednesday that has 3 rings with all, top judges. So
right. And you're getting S-level judges, which is super.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit different.
Sure.
It's not like jumping in. So no, I think it's great. And like you said, you're ready to go. So, okay. So now we're ready to go. We decided our horse is ready at that level. Then the interesting part starts, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about, you can't just enter a CDI, right? There's some stages you have to do for U.S. riders. Well, we're going to put this on the U.S. riders versus, sorry, Phil, you'll have to tell us what the Canadians do, but it's for U.S.
similar.
riders.
Yeah, it's a very similar process, but we'll talk about that a little bit after.
Yeah, cool. So, okay. So Jordan, we were ready. We feel really confident. We want to go to the international ring. What do you do next?
So I think one of the most important things you do for this next step is to make sure that you have colleagues and friends who have experience doing this so that you can rely and refer to them for help when you have questions, because the whole process is super daunting. There's many apps, there's different registrations you've got to be up to date with. You've got to make sure, for us, we've got to go through USDF, then the FEI, and then we've got the dashboard, and then there's, it's like so many different things to navigate through. So I think the first thing is to have someone who knows a little bit about it to help navigate. I think that was definitely in my favor.
I think maybe the first thing, and this may take a little while for some people to get your horse FEI passported.
Yes.
You got to start that process early. Like, we're doing ours for a certain horse that may go international this summer. We're doing it now. Make sure he gets it, because it's got to go off to Europe and then come back and, all this stuff. So I just wanted to say that's kind of the first step.
You make a super good point with that, because I do have to say the passport process is almost the most daunting, because when you purchase a horse or get a horse with one that's not been kept up, and then you make a transfer of ownership, or say you have a new horse that you're starting it over, you've got to have everything dotted and T's crossed and vet signatures and owner signatures and approved by this and sent. I mean, I think you're dead on. That is the most challenging first step, is getting the passport in order.
Yes. And in ours, I'm lucky. I actually live 10 minutes from the office. So I have literally had to hand deliver it a few times and sit outside the office waiting for it. But that's really not very many people have that opportunity. But, so first of all, you have to call USCF or your national federation. You have to apply for a passport and pay. They really want your money. And
they really want money. That's
they really. Then you have to have a veterinarian that really knows what they're doing. That's actually really important. You need to have an FEI veterinarian, and if your vet is not an FEI veterinarian, they got to read the stuff, because that can really throw off the process. And then you have to make sure that all your vaccinations are up to date and also done in the correct time, because that's a bad thing if you miss one. That's a huge pain in the tail, because again, they want your money, so they'll fine you. And so you're right. So this all happened before we came to Florida. You needed to have that. You can't just say, oh, okay, I'm ready to go in 2 weeks. And if you don't have, there's no way you're going to do that.
Yeah, vaccination timing is very, very important. They're very detailed about that. You can't just give it and then go to a show. It has to be within a certain time. And they're very, very much sticklers about all this stuff. And so, start the process early, research, call your vet, make sure your vet knows what they're doing or that they've done it before, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, so we've got our passport, we're ready to go. Now we want to enter the horse show. For a USCF rider, you mentioned it, you have to go to the USCF website and actually apply at certain levels. And again, this is dependent on what level you're doing. At Grand Prix, you have to have a certain scores to be eligible. I'm not sure at the small tour level at this point, but again, that changes every year. So you have to make sure. You might as well just call USCF, and because the girls in the office are amazing and they'll help you walk you through it. But you have to go and say, I want to do this CDI. I want to do this level. You click the submit. Then you get your sort of, yay, you're in, you can do it. And then once that happens, then you actually can enter the competition, which, Jordan, I'm sure you feel the same way I do. It's like, grab your credit card and warm it up a little bit, because it's expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's sticker shock when you're not used to what the international prices are versus the national level entry fees. So there is definitely that to sort of be prepared for. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, as far as the show organizing goes, I mean, it's more judges, it's international judges, it's, international veterinarian. I mean, they don't just, charge you and keep your money. It all goes to good places, but
yes, exactly.
It's for expensive. Sure. But it's definitely a sticker shock when you're not sort of in the mindset for it, in the sense that you realize, ooh, we've just stepped it up. Yeah.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It all goes to its appropriate places for sure. But, again, I'm going to sort of add this in is, I think one of the next things that's important outside of getting your entries and your USEF stuff done and your FEI stuff done and entering the show is being familiarized with what's expected. What are the rules? What are the, like if you touch something that's a banned substance and how that can affect you if your horse is tested, or, simple little nuances that you just don't know are not okay. You got to become really familiarized with.
Yeah. And that's a
so
great
there's a lot
point.
of reading.
Yeah, there's a lot of reading. You're absolutely right. So that's a really good point. When, we make grain, once you're sort of within the window, we usually do it 2 weeks out because I'm super keyed up on it, is all that horse's food that's going to the CDI, we actually glove up and we use only the same scoops and we don't intermingle anything because
We're
that
sort of
can
the
be a
same. So
problem.
that's something we practice too. I mean, you've got to be super stringent about that because if it can test, it will test.
It will test. And the tests are so, and again, most of the time you're not even trying to do it, but some horses on something that's banned and it could, it's just, that's what we do. And I think everyone's, pretty up to date on that and pretty careful. But that's something you have to do when you have a CDI horse, and you have to know, like, when anything that touches the horse, we call the veterinarian. Like, I'm very close to my vet at this point because, ask a lot of questions.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
on speed dial.
Yes. You have to be very careful about it.
Ignorance is not a good enough excuse. No. I mean, if your horse tests, it's very serious. I mean, we see it in the news all the time, and horse or rider,
riders.
So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, to this point, there is the information out there. So like you said, ignorance is not a valid excuse because the information needed is available.
Yeah.
You just got to take time to read it.
You got to read it. You do have to read it, and you have to read it every year, and you have to really be up to date on it. And that's why, we're doing this segment because, I mean, it's daunting, even if it's not your first year. I kind of went through this again last year because it was my first time in 11 years to do a CDI. So it had been a really long time and things had really changed. So now there is an app in which you have to take your horse's temperature 3 days before the jog. You have to log your horse's temperature. And, and they're very serious about it. If you don't log it, you're not getting in the tent, and they're taking you're not in, you can't compete. So that is another thing that's new this year. This is new for all of us. There have been some glitches to it. Mm-hmm. I was even talking to my friend who's a show jump rider. Like, every rider that's in the international arena, show jumping, driving, all of it, they're under these restrictions too. So you have to there's apps now that you have to load everything on. So once you've sort of logged your apps, then what happens once you get to global, right? So we're talking about jog day. So kind of walk everybody through that process.
So jog day, it's, when you are first doing it, it's sort of like the rite of passage. Once you get your jog situated and done and approved, you feel like you could just take a deep breath for 2 seconds because the next level of the gauntlet's about to hit. But no, in all seriousness, I think preparing for the jog, having done this before in driving, I knew what to expect and was prepared for sort of the presentation aspect of it. And it wasn't new to me. But one of the things that I find traditional in a sense about it is it sort of is the rite of passage and this next step of the process. And it's sort of a part of the due process, I guess is the way I'm supposed to say. You get yourself prepared mentally, you braid your horse, you're thinking about the week ahead and when your tests are, lots of stuff's going through your head. And of course, you've always wondering oh my goodness, I hope everything's great. A lot of things with horses happen so quickly, right? So you're go in sound and you never know what's going to come out. So you've always got that little trepidation, but I think it's a great first step. You get yourself centered, you braid your horse, you go in, do your business, hand your passport off, smile, you get past, and then you're on to the next stage of the process.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, the jog, you basically take your horse in, you're braided. It has gotten less formal since COVID. Used to be that we dressed. Now some people dress, but I just put my boots on and nice breeches and a top. And you hand the judges, who are your judges and the veterinarians, you hand them your passport. They look over the horse, make sure that there's nothing wrong, and then you jog down a lane and you jog back. And in the morning, when you go into the stabling, they do what's called an in-barn. So literally at Global, you have to have 2 people because you literally take the horse off the trailer and go right to where the veterinarians are. And that's your time, if they have a scratch or you're worried about something, or they're there to help you, not be mean to you, but they check over your passport. they tempt the horses.
And we get temps again. More temperatures are taken.
There's a lot of temperatures.
A lot of temperatures are being taken.
There's temperatures all the time. Yeah, which is good because again, last year there was the EHV1 outbreak in Europe and a little bit in northern Florida. So they're very careful. I was in the CDI barn when that happened. So it was more attempts were taken. But so that happened. So you've done that already. And then you go do your jog and there's a dashboard that you sign up for. And you're going to be in the, let's say, 11 o'clock group. And then once you're in your 11 o'clock group, you go there at your time and up and down you go. And hopefully it's as simple as that. You can, if they see something they don't like, they can hold you. They can have you jog again. Again, they want, nobody wants to fail you, but they are making sure that your horse looks okay and is doing okay. So
once that I want to add about the jog process too, which was kind of interesting is, when you sign up for these times, you also have to be prepared to go a little early because the jogs tend to run a little quicker than you sign up. And so you'll have the attendants running through, this group come now or early. So, it's kind of good to be prepared to go earlier than your slot for that.
Yes.
Because then you got people yelling at you, group 2, let's go.
You do. And once the jog happens, then they basically lock down the stabling. So this is also a little bit different for a CDI, right? So you have to give in your credentials. So basically you get an email in Wellington, it comes on Sunday. Other CDIs are different, but you are limited for the number of people that can come into the stables. So that's always good to know. You can't, basically there's no real party back there. It's not open. So the rider gets a credential, you get a companion, you get a coach, you get a groom, and I think 2 owner passes or 1 owner pass. Yep. So you have to be prepared for that, that you have to know that not everybody is going to get into
your squad can't come.
Yes. No, they can go, they can watch.
Stay away.
Yeah. Which is good. It keeps it a little bit quieter back there. And again, it's nice. Usually I try to stable with a friend because you're not always there and we kind of check the horses and that kind of stuff. And they're very well watched. That is not a problem, but you can't have your squad back there. That's right. And then the draw happens, right? So do you want to tell everybody about the draw?
Yeah, the draw is interesting. So unlike other sort of shows, you don't necessarily get your time after the draw. They wait till the evening before your class. So for example, if you're going on Saturday, you don't get your Saturday ride times till Friday night. So that's something to be prepared for mentally, that you can't really plan your life based off of having a set ride times. But the interesting thing is they draw your number, everyone gets a time. And then, from that, you get, your time for that class, the day before. So there's not a lot of prep time, which I think is different. And you've got to be a little prepared for mentally, that can unnerve some people. And, it is what it is.
And I think it is hard for us riders who have businesses down here, so people are like,
for sure.
What are we doing on Saturday? And you're like, I won't know till Friday night. So I definitely prepare my clients and people that if they're down, you got to give me grace on what will happen on that day because I can't tell you.
Sure.
And again, there's certain times that you can school. It's much more regulated. Than a regular competition. There's places you can walk, there's places, and again, it is good that if you're going down this road that number one, like you said, you really talk to people, then make friends with the show organizer and just say
absolutely make friends with a lot of people.
A lot of people and the stewards, they're there to help you. They're really, unless you're doing something really bad, they're going to make sure you're okay. Nobody wants to get you eliminated, but you do have to pay attention to that. That's actually important. So again, it's probably that it sounds daunting and it is a little bit daunting until you're used to it, until you've done it a few times. And now you're on your 3rd or 4th one this season, right? It's old hat now.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But again, the more you do, you get more comfortable with the process. The first one, it is terrifying. No kidding. For everybody.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would agree. I think the first one, you kind of just want to get through it alive and then
Yeah.
decompress and then like gauge the situation and realize whether or not, is this for me or is this not where I want to be?
Exactly. Exactly. And you really do, you understand, a little bit more as you go through what the top riders go through, but they're pretty used to it. And once you're used to it, it
Right.
makes it easier. So
one thing that I became woefully aware of during this whole process so far is that there is a due process to this. Like you can't just come in and take it by storm and expect to, be on top of the mountain. Like, I think it's a very healthy thing to come in and realize it's really an honor to be able to compete at this level. And it's a privilege. And it's for many riders who kind of get to this point, it's a moment of everything starts to make sense. All of the years of leading up to this moment start to make sense. And so I think it's for your first one, second one, first year. I mean, as you get more comfortable with it, that sort of becomes the normal, but it is sort of a very special privilege to be able to compete internationally, and to realize that you're being held to an international standard, not just your country standard.
I love that. I mean, Jordan, I couldn't have said it any better. Like, that was an amazing way to say that. And it's true. And I think there's only so many riders in the world that get to go down that center line. And we all sit on the side sometimes and talk about, oh, I could do this and I can do that. And I sit there thinking, yeah, you just go down that center line and see how it feels. Like, you get out there and it is an honor. It's a privilege. It's humbling. There's a lot of humbling that will happen. But it is, for sure. It's an amazing experience.
One of the things that I think is so important is to remember, outside of the fact that we're competing, that this is supposed to be a good experience for our horses. And so when you have the perspective that, yes, you're competing and this is serious, at the end of the day, our horses still have to enjoy their jobs. So I find making the experience good for the horse, and limiting the pressure, especially, I'm not saying that the 1-star level is nothing to sneeze at, but it's the beginning, right? So this is the time to kind of get your feet wet, at least for me anyway. I look at it like this. It's time to get the horse down, get the miles, get the experience, and make sure you leave that ring with a horse that's willing to kind of go back in the ring. You know what I mean? It's so easy to overface these horses. So this whole beginning process to the CDI thing, I would encourage people that want to do it to have a good, healthy balance of their expectation, and to remember that it's not just about us. We've still got our horses that we've got to deal in this overwhelming atmosphere. Make it a good experience.
Make it a good experience. Well, Jordan, I couldn't have said it better. That was a great way and a great perspective. And I think that is exactly how you have to go in looking at all this level, because it really is, it really, truly, the riders at this level, you kind of know how it's going to slide. The class is going to end up. Now there are horses, but I have always found that competitors throughout the world, there's respect for everybody that's in there. There's respect for what happens. Everybody's had good days. Everybody's had bad days.
Absolutely.
And everybody respects it when it's a bad day. So I love it. Well, Jordan, thank you so much. I know you're actually at Global. You're probably going to check your horse for the evening. But how can our listeners find you online and watch your journey?
So I've got a website. It's maverickhilldressage.com. And I keep a lot of stuff on the website up to date, and then Facebook, Jordan LaPlaca, and Instagram, Jordan LaPlaca.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jordan, I am rooting you on, especially. I know you're going to have a great show this weekend, and thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been an honor.
Well, Phil, we had a saddle day this week where we fitted saddles. I love it. It's always so helpful. And Justin at Total Saddle Fit is fantastic about saddle fit questions. And Justin has a great saddle pad, the 6-point saddle pad that is shimmable and it has wither freedom. And this is such a great pad because, I'm really lucky. I get to see our saddle fitter when we're here in Florida. He also comes in November. So if I have some horses in Kentucky that need to get looked at, but Big Mike did not get looked at in Kentucky because it happened to be he was competing the day the saddle fitter came to the barn. So I didn't want to change, obviously, the saddle pad or the saddle right before the national championship. So he didn't get looked at. And I kept like, why is his saddle not great? And I was using a shimmable saddle pad from Total Saddle Fit. And finally, I was able to get the saddle fitter out. But it was just a good reminder that you can't always see your saddle fitter all the time, and it just doesn't always work out. But to have that item in your tack room is the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's been indispensable in young horses, and where they're changing a lot, or so we're kind of the same way in that I try to get the saddles looked at every 6 months, but it's nice to be able to tweak them a little bit or experiment if something's not feeling right. So the half pads from Total Saddle Fit are awesome, as are all the rest of their products. Just go to www.totalsaddlefit.com.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth, at totalsaddlefit.com.
Well, for this week's Total Saddle Fit tip of the week, we are so excited to have USDF certified instructor, bronze, silver, and gold medalist, Julie Penshorn. Julie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Julie, you have a great tip for our listeners today. I'm just going to let you get started.
All right. Today's tip is how to be better at doing the turn on the forehand and why you want to know. So the turn on the forehand, I feel, is an extremely essential part of anybody's dressage training. It's interesting that you'll discover it in Western training as well, but that's used in a rather different way. I use turn on the forehand as a fundamental building block of all future work. You can find it in a similar type of delivery in the old masters' works in Podolsky. I've read some articles by Courtney King Dye. Everybody and their brother and mother uses turn on the forehand, but it can be used so deftly that you develop your transitions, you develop your halts, you develop your stretching circle, you develop, of course, half halts because they sort of go with halts, and all sorts of other things. So here's how to do it. First of all, start with very soft reins whenever possible. Make sure that you're sitting toward the direction of the leg that you're going to use. Now that gets a little bit tricky because you're going to tend to tip your hips at that point. So when I say sit toward the direction of the leg you're going to use, let's say, for example, you want to teach your horse to move away from your right leg. And that really is the best side to start on because in my experience, most horses tend to be hollow on the right side, which means that they keep their hindquarters a little further toward the right and their shoulder a little further toward the left, giving them a concave picture on the right. So a really important thing for them to learn how to do is line up their haunches with their forehand. Therefore, a turn on the forehand from the right leg in the back position moves their haunches over to the left, and you can continue around a circle, making a directional change or a full 360 in a turn, or you can use the turn as a way to line up the hindquarters better with the forehand. So start by bringing your right leg back. Now, when you do this, this does not mean you need to bring your thigh back. Everybody's so trying to be the most beautiful dressage rider in the world. So they take their unflexible legs and their unyielding hips and they force them into a dressage saddle that cranks their knee way back underneath them so they can look like Lisa Wilcox. I'm sorry, you're not probably going to look like that, so you might as well just get used to it. Let your knee bend. Don't ride in a saddle that's a straitjacket. You can do this in a jumping saddle. Allow your knee to bend. Now you pull your calf back. All right. What moves the horse is not really your leg. It's the air under your leg and your whip. If you use your leg, it's too much aid. You're begging. It's very important in the turn on the forehand to think, horse, I'd like you to move away from this air underneath my right leg. Oh, you don't understand that. Let me help you. I'm going to use this other leg I have on that side. It's called my whip. I'm going to touch you gently with my whip. Oh, you felt that? Oh, that's terrific. Aren't you wonderful? Now you've taken one step toward the left with your haunches. You're brilliant. Good boy. I only want you to take one step at a time because I don't want to wheel you around. I want you to deliberately step in front of and across your other hind leg. When you do that, lo and behold, horse, you're going to develop some engagement because that right hind, as it crosses over the left, is going to bend. As it does all those things, it's going to lower. Now, here comes back to your position. Yes, you're going to stay on the right side of that saddle, but you're going to keep your left hip down. And the first thing that happens when that horse takes a step is your hips are going to move. One is going to go up and the other is going to go down. You're going to feel unbalanced and like you're tipping over and off the horse. Here's where the very, very valuable thing of use your core muscles and imagine that there is maybe a string of lights on your belt and make sure that that string of lights stays level. Your belt has to stay level, even as your horse moves. Don't let him throw your butt cheeks up in the air one at a time. All he's doing at that point is not bending his own hind legs. The point of this exercise, or a huge point of this exercise, is to get the horse to bend his hind legs. When he steps over and across and under himself, he will. Now, after he begins to step over fairly willingly, and you are able to make the turn on a small little dinner plate with his front legs, what I mean, the front legs of the horse are turning in such a small area. He's not wandering around somewhere. I like to practice these on the center line. So I'm looking at A when I start, looking at C when I finish. Or maybe I go all the way around. Maybe go around a couple times. Another way to do it is to ride down the rail of the arena. If I were going to turn from the right leg, I'd ride around the arena heading left. Deep breath, blow it out. Think of saying, use those tummy muscles, and now you have a halt. Now bring your right leg back and ask the horse one step, stop, another step, stop, using the wall to help you eliminate forward motion.
With the turn on the forehand, you can do it against the wall, correct? You can also do it in the open side of the arena.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Depending on what you're looking for and the level of engagement. And if you need the wall for stability, those are some great places to do it. And I love how you just said, the horse you should not be begging to move forward. So I think that was such a great point that you made, because so many people I see, the turn on the forehand is a building block exercise. And I see those riders digging in, and it's not what we're after there. So I love that idea of gentle.
What I find is the worst turns are made with the strongest leg. Keep your thigh open, your leg relaxed. Yes, move the calf back. Yeah. Keep yourself level. Use a little bit of stirrup pressure, perhaps, so you don't fall off when the horse moves. Yeah. But tap him. Give him a tap. And then that sets the tone for all the rest of your work.
Julie, that's fantastic tip for all of our riders. And I think you're right. That sets the tone. And that's really one of the or the reasons you're using the turn on the forehand. So that is
to develop sensitivity and obedience to the leg, which is a cardinal principle of everything we do.
I love it. Well, Julie, this was such a great tip. How can our listeners find you online?
Well, you can go to sunbornstables.com. That used to be my business for 20 some years. Now I just work there.
That's a smart lady right there.
And so now I'm freed up to do clinics and other things. But I warn you, I'm very particular and very classical, but I believe in horses do need to respond rather than ignore their riders. I'd like to give you my email as well.
Great.
And because the contact information on Sunborn Stables is for the current owner. But you can reach me at my name. It's very simple. Julie, Julie, Penshorn, PENSHORN @gmail.com.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for our Total Saddle Fit tip of the week. And we look forward to having you another time. Well, Phil, as always, we love email and Facebook shout outs from all our listeners. Keep them coming. You guys know if you have a question or a tip that you want us to talk about, send us an email. We love it and we'll get to it for sure. You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is probably through Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a good show. That's Kentucky Performance Products, Horse Report System, and Total Saddle Fit. If you'd like to support our show and the Horse Radio Network, you can do that through the auditor program found at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you next week.